How's it going, guys? It's almost 2024. Tomorrow is going to be 2024. I'm so happy. Last year, I got to graduate out of my bachelor's. It's a pretty prestigious program. Not many people are graduating out of it, but I was happy to make it within 5 years of enrolling. So that was quite nice. Pretty much all my third and fourth year classes were not only easy, but they were really fun to do, and I was really happy. So that was great. And I recently just got a very prestigious job opportunity with a very well known company. I don't want to spill the beans because I don't want to get doxxed, and honestly, it's a contract position, so I'm kind of in between of writing the contract and getting myself enrolled. So I'm hoping that I don't jinx it and ruin the surprise for myself. So I'm not going to talk about that. But I do want to push that in 2024 I will be pumping a lot more content, not just on this channel, but on my other channels. And that's because I'm finally going to get out of the nest, the bird's nest per se, and I am going to be working on a lot more projects. One thing I suggest doing, if you guys want to do this on your own and kind of enjoy yourself, is getting a flowchart diagram running. You could use Lucidchart. I used draw.io, and using this you can, you got to connect with whichever you prefer. I would probably go with Google Drive or like a GitLab. If you have a GitLab website, that'd be kind of nice. And you could draw up your let me actually do it right now and show you guys a little bit how that works. Connect, and then there you go, create new diagram. Yes, that's fine. So here you are, and you basically just make yourself a diagram for the stuff you want to do in life. So here I basically wrote up like the things I like, and then you just connect to your dreams. There's a dream 1, dreams 2, and you can just quickly connect them to each of the potential dreams that you have. So I've been working on that, and that's been really fun. And I know for a fact that in 2024, it will be a very ram-packed year, whether it's in content, whether it's in my own personal projects, but I'm really happy to say that it will be going well. All right, so now let's talk about something that happened recently. Recently, my $400 gaming platform video blew up. It's 450 views. That's pretty good for me. Like, I don't like anything over 200 views. I'm very happy with, just because this channel is made for people to enjoy, and if nobody's watching, well, it's just not going to help anyone, right? And it was a sequel to my CPU platform list, which got a lot less attention. I think I got probably no views. It probably got like kicked out of the sub notifications or something. I don't really care, to be honest. It's just that it kind of sucks because sorry, that's a baby cat crying here. But yes, it probably got kicked out of your sub box. I definitely suggest watching that video because it is complete. It completely explains everything you got to know about 2023, 2024, 2025 even. Use platform gaming, and also how does it compare with new platforms. So I definitely suggest doing that. So this was a sequel, and it was specifically to look at a very specific build, which I was basically what do you call that? I was asked to make a video on it because people didn't really understand what I was talking about. It was a very technical build, and so because of that, I really needed to I felt the need to actually make a video on it. And with the Google Doc videos, it's just very easy for me to make videos. It's a lot less quality than maybe some of my earlier videos where I actually like edited out. But no edits are great because I could just run OBS and just talk about it like I'm doing right now. So I made, oh my goodness, my cat is screwing around. Oh, all right. So I made this video, and it's really just to look into some very cheap platform options that would allow you to play with like a 3090, 4090, no problem. And really the only limitation I would argue is, Gen 3 PCIe. That might be a problem in the near future. I'm not quite sure. But I'm sure that for any problem, there will be a solution. And at worst, you get, a 3090, 24 gigabytes of VRAM. I mean, do you really need any more? Like, even if we run like 64 gigabytes of VRAM within the next 4 years, are you really going to use all that? I don't think so. So it's really a max FPS type build. And what ended up happening was it blew up, and I started getting a lot of comments. And the sad part, I'm very happy to always answer comments. I love comments. But the sad part is a lot of them were kind of normie comments, maybe people that are on PC Part Picker that don't really know what they're talking about, people that are on PCMR, that build their build and then they just kind of leave it at that. So let's start with maybe some background from my own experience. I used to be a certified technician for a very large refurbishing factory. I used to work with Core 2 Duos, Core 2 Quads, i5s, i7s of the early gens, and laptops. And I used to build them from scratch. I used to troubleshoot them. I had to troubleshoot a lot of Windows install problems because of that. And through my little campaign, I would argue, because it was a co-op, a paid co-op in high school, I dealt with a lot of problems that the average person probably never dealt with, because it's a big numbers game. I mean, we probably saw 1,200 computers within a 3-month time span. So I had to deal with a lot of issues, and issues that you wouldn't expect. And especially because we were running Windows 10 at that time with Core 2 Duos in very low-end systems. We've seen systems that had 512 megs of RAM, and once we saw that, we're like, uh-oh. And then after that, I went back into high school, and I needed a little bit of cash, so I started building used computers. So that was a bit of that. Before that, even before that, I was really into computers. I had my basic Chrome computer. Back then we were playing Battlefield Online and Quake Live on the Chrome apps systems, and I used to play Nexon, all kinds of stuff. But I also got a bit of that experience just running a GTX Titan on a Core 2 Quad back then. That was quite a bottleneck, and I had to kind of deal with that, figure out how that works. So I have a lot of experience with just building used computers, figuring out how it works, and understanding the complexities of computers. And I made recently a computer peripheral video that was a little bit more computer architecture. What I'm talking about is a lot of practical knowledge. So that's my background. Now let's look at the replies, some replies I got. So here I got the very first reply I got 3 weeks ago when the video blew up, I assume. I didn't look at the YouTube stats. I honestly don't care if it blows up or whatever. It's again, like, I make these videos for a few friends, and then if it does blow up, it's just kind of there. I don't really care for the fame or whatever. So here I get a comment that says that CPU isn't compatible with that board. So right off the bat, that's that's just a guy who hasn't watched the last video, where I actually have like all the information on how to run this properly. Again, there is a link that explains to you exactly how to do that with an 8th or 9th gen. It's a combination. I believe you have to run a specific BIOS, depending on the manufacturer, usually probably the newest BIOS. And then on top of that, you just have to basically use electric tape and tape up a couple of the pins on the back of your CPU. And doing that will allow you to run this CPU on your board. And that's actually really similar to back in the day with Core 2 Quads. You could run a Xeon CPU onto your regular Core 2 Quad, so LGA 775 motherboard. And to do that, oh, that's my cat again. Sorry about that, guys. But again, you could do that exactly with a Xeon the CPU, and it required a couple of other things. Like you literally had to saw off a part of the CPU, but otherwise it was basically the same thing. So here we got a lot of people talking about BIOS mods and things like that. No, it's a little easier than that. You literally just have to run electric tape under your CPU. Yes, you do have to have steady hands, steady eyes, but again, it is quite worth it. And here I kind of go into depth why. Well, you want to do this because the Z170 and Z270 boards are, generally speaking, more contentful. They have better connectivity. They have better VRMs than the average Z370 board, especially the Z370. I was really surprised how bad those boards were. And generally speaking, also you can get SAS or U.2 onto the board. So that's something that for a lot of guys that want to run like a local NAS, that might be really useful. Like even for myself, I every day I look at like SAS or U.2 compartment for NVMe drives, especially like an SSD to U.2. I think that's pretty cool technology, and it allows you to basically compress a lot of your board's capacity. So for instance, I was looking at Z170 Impact that I would probably run again with a 9700 KF. That's really the juicy one right now, and it would allow you for a lot of performance, I think personally. And you get one U.2, so you could run your boot on that, and you can run basically a Gen 4 SSD just fine. And it's a very cheap way of running a boot SSD that is much faster than running SATA, for instance. And it's cheaper. That's the main thing. Then we have this guy who says this is complete misinformation. Okay, buddy. Like, when someone uses misinformation, I already know they're a normie. There's not really such a thing as misinformation in terms of computing, because again, like, when it comes to computers, you can just look it up. It's not really that hard. If someone is misinformed or whatnot, you just tell them you're misinformed, look it up. The idea of misinformation comes from like basically your mainstream folklore versus alternative folklore. He says, she says kind of dynamics with information. And I know about this because of what I do for a living. So again, when someone uses misinformation, I mean, this is a guy that probably doesn't know what he's talking about with computers. So here he's talking about a 5600X3D bundle from Micro Center. So right there we know what's going on. He didn't watch my last video, just like the first guy here, or I mean the string of comments here. And he thinks that I'm talking about USD prices. I am not talking about USD prices. If I was talking about USD prices, I'm sure I could get a much better deal on a 9700 KF. That's, that's a given in my opinion. The 5600X3D, we never got those in Canada, which kind of sucks. We got the 5500, which is quite a good CPU actually, but the 5600X3D, I mean, that was in its own lane. I would argue it's a very good gaming CPU overall, with obviously one big flaw, and we'll talk about that in a sec here. But the ironic part here is that, again, he's talking about USD and he's talking about a CPU we don't get here in Canada. Then he also starts talking about 5600X, and somehow you'd get the same performance or cheaper than a 9700K. Okay, so yeah, game overclocking. The 5600X3D is not overclockable, which means you're limited to whatever the PBO allows you to do. And yes, PBO is much better than what it was in, well, what Turbo Boost was, back in 2015. I'll granted that. A lot of people have been saying it's like a stock overclock. Oh, my CPU's stock overclocking. That's not true. After many months of testing, not your average testing, we're talking about like overclock.net testing, PBO actually kind of sucks. It uses a lot more voltage than what your CPU would usually give. People didn't really understand that right when they started, and it also had to do with the fact that now we had AVX tuning happening. So with the new CPUs, anything newer than Skylake, we've been having to tweak your AVX settings on the BIOS. And this allowed for like stability and such. And because a lot of video games only really use AVX2, it doesn't use like 512 or what's the other one? AVX 2.1, I believe. Because of that, AVX tuning is like a huge thing. And once they started AVX tuning on Ryzen 5000, they realized that actually a a lot of the PBO is not using the bins properly. You might lose 200 megahertz, 300 megahertz. Some people have even lost like 500 megahertz because of some really weird BIOS stuff. So actually PBO is pretty sketch overall, and you know, that's always been the case. Like if you look even at like Ryzen 1000 and 2000, you know, those overclocks were also very sketch on the BIOSes, especially the RAM overclocking. That was just ridiculous. So the 5600X, I do agree that it is a good CPU. It's very good if you buy it, but again, is it as good as a 9700KF? No, for just two really good reasons. Ryzen 5000 was made to compete with Intel cache. So the huge advantage between getting like a Ryzen, or sorry, the huge advantage between getting an Intel versus a Ryzen has always been because of cache. Cache allows you to run memory much faster, which allows you to run games at a much lower latency time. And that's just how Windows is, and I made a video about that just recently. So cache is very important. Ryzen always had worse cache setups than with Intel. It took them years to get close to Intel cache, and with the X3Ds, it was able to get a bit of an advantage, especially with just the raw amount of cache you get on the chip. That's definitely an advantage. But again, the second disadvantage, and this is the bigger one here, is the actual overclocks. So clock for clock, Ryzen 5000 is a little faster, and this is the IPC we're talking about here, but it's not enough to grant the bad bins. So with Ryzen 5000, you're really lucky to get 4.8 gigahertz. That's kind of like the new golden clock rate for Ryzen. Obviously, we're not talking about Ryzen 7000 here, but for Ryzen 5000, and you know, even if you get like 4.7 gigahertz, you're already very lucky. So to run it at 4.8 gigahertz, that will ask you of getting a better CPU cooler, and that can be a nuisance if you're running Ryzen. Like one of the main reasons why you want to run Ryzen in the first place, and I made a 9 Square platform video about that, is that Ryzen is very easy to run. So could you imagine running, you know, buying a cheap motherboard, buying a cheap Ryzen, and then having to deal with, you know, getting proper thermal paste, you know, even thermal paste on your CPU cooler? I mean, that's just a pain in the ass. With Intel, you will have to work harder to get your, you know, getting really high overclocks with a really good board, but in the end, you're going to have higher overclocks with a really good board. You know what I mean? You're going to have better connectivity, you're going to have 5.2 gigahertz or higher, and you will be having 20% more FPS than a 5600X, even overclocked. So that just, you know, puts the whole argument out in the water. Totally useless. The fact that he had to say it was misinformation. I mean, listen, man, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, that doesn't mean it's misinformation. I mean, that's the big thing that I guess triggered this video. Why would someone use language they don't understand? I don't understand that. That's very mid-witted, very normie. And so, yeah, that's why I was saying, like, this is probably a PCMR type guy. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say today. Guys, if you do want to comment on my videos, that's totally fine. I like comments. I enjoy them. But understand that I used to be a technical officer. I used to work with a lot of computers that you've never seen in your life. And that is why I make these videos. Otherwise, I would not make these videos. I'm very transparent with that. What I talk about, okay, maybe it's a little theoretical, maybe it's a little sketched out, but I am trying to boost your FPS out the gate so that when you game or when you do workloads, that you're getting the most out of your your bang for your buck. So that's pretty much it for today, guys. Thank you for blowing up this video. Please like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. We will be making more, and I do want to touch on the 9 Square video. I might even make one today, depending on how much time I have. I just haven't had any time since the holidays, dealing with a contract. I had to get myself incorporated. That was a pain in the ass. So I hope you guys enjoyed, guys, and have a great day.